Good wishes to all of you. An Introduction to Indian Art Part 1 Textbook in Fine Arts for Class 11. Take a look at preface. During the 19th century, the period of British rule, a few British colonial officers took active interest to study India's past in collaboration with some Indian scholars, and it is out of such endeavors that a systematic study of architectural monuments, sculptures, and paintings began in the Indian subcontinent. The first attempt in this regard was to document the monuments as they represented a very visible evidence of the bygone era. Over a period of time, with the archaeological explorations and excavations, many art historical sites were discovered. Decipherment of inscriptions and study of coins played a significant role in our understanding of the past art traditions. With the study of religious texts, history of religion was studied and identification of icons, sculptures, and paintings was initiated, which became a dominant area of early scholarship. Study of art history has developed in association with the archaeological studies. However, it is now recognized as a specialized discipline. In the West, mainly in Europe, the art historical discipline has grown considerably with numerous methodological inputs, whereas in India, it is still in the process of developing its investigating mechanisms. As the study of art history has grown out of extensive documentations and excavations, one finds description of art objects as a prominent method of study. There are a few significant studies of the early 20th century where the concerns are addressed beyond mere description. Subsequently, several generations of outstanding Western and Indian scholars of Indian art history have studied the subject at great depth, making us realize the glorious past of the Indian civilization through its creation reflected in the architectural monuments, sculptures, and paintings. We can claim a distinct Indian approach to the arts of the building edifice, the sculpture making, and the language of painting in comparison with the European art on one hand and the Far Eastern art on the other. Therefore, the Indian art historical studies have emerged as a prestigious academic discipline at a university level education. The systematic features of various monuments and sculptures have been attributed to the dynastic affiliations like the Mauryan art, Shatavahana art, Gupta art, etc. Alternatively, the periodization of art follows religious denominations such as the Buddhist, Hindu, and Islamic periods. However, such deterministic nomenclatures are only particularly useful for understanding the art traditions. Often, the study of art objects is based on two important approaches: formalistic or stylistic analysis and content and contextual studies. The first category involves the study of formalistic characteristics of architecture, sculpture, paintings, whereas the Second category concentrates at various levels of content analysis, which has several components such as iconographic study, iconology, narrative, and semiotics. Iconography involves identification of images through certain symbols, signs, and relevant myths or narrative episodes, whereas iconology involves the study of the evolution of such signs and symbols in its historical, social, and philosophical context. Today, the methodological framework tries to explore various concerns and issues in the process of art production and attempts to go beyond the traditional meanings. It may be observed that the political intentions of various religious ideologies are yet to become a part of the larger investigative process. Religious ideologies were also instrumental in shaping the social and economic formulations in ancient India. Therefore, it becomes important to study such factors that have influenced art forms. Large body of material has come from the religious sites, but it does not mean that there was no art in non-religion domains. Terracotta figurines are the best examples in this category. However, due to space constraint, they have been only mentioned but not extensively discussed. In the present text, the authors have tried to move away from the normative traditional descriptive writings to broader development of art and architectural monuments. In terms of their stylistic developments as well as their social and political affiliations, cultural manifestations have diverse ideologies in the form of architecture, sculpture, and paintings. They need to be studied with their religious and social viewpoints. Hence, unlinear projection of the cultural tradition needs to be reconsidered as it is away from realities of the ancient past. Different categories of artisans existed in the actual working situation. A guild of artisans may have been employed by the religious and political authorities for making monuments, and accordingly, the artisans had to work and devise their execution techniques along with the necessary innovations, etc. Necessarily innovations, etc. In this textbook, only an introductory outline has been attempted from pre and proto historic times till the times of the Islamic monuments during the late medieval period. Considering the level of the young generation readers belonging to the higher secondary stage, the present book outlines a few examples to create an understanding of the nature of developments in Indian art. It is not intended to discard such examples which we know are important, but all the contributors have made a consequous attempts to present convincing holistic pictures. The chapters in the book provide an outline of different forms of arts from most of the regions of the country. Human civilization begins with the emergence of the human beings on the earth. In this book, a simpler but at the same time a distinct vocabulary has been introduced. The idea is not only to present the vast amount of data available but also to generate interest in understanding the visual traditions of Indian art. For any student of fine arts, it is necessary to be aware of the visual tradition in the past so as to understand the present art production. Understanding of visual tradition enriches visual understanding. Hope the young minds find the book enriching as in intended. Gandhiji's talisman. I will give you a talisman whenever you are in doubt or when the self becomes too much with you. Apply the following text. Recall the face of the poorest and the weakest man whom you may have seen and ask yourself if the step you contemplate is going to be of any use to him. Will he gain anything by it? Will it restore him to a control over his own life and destiny? In other words, will it lead to Swaraj for the hungry and spiritually starving millions? Then you will find your doubts and yourself melting away. Take a look at context. There are eight topics in art and culture. Introduction Part 1 book. Take a look at this map. Map showing prehistoric sites. Outline map not to scale. The circle shows areas with paintings. Circle with dot areas with engraving and paintings. The dot shows areas with engraving. The square shows state capitals and the oval shape shows other important towns. Prehistoric rock paintings. The first topic, audiobook. The distant past, when there was no paper or language or the written word, and hence no books or written documents, is called prehistory, or, as we often say, prehistoric times. How people lived in those times was difficult to surmise until scholars began to discover the places where prehistoric people lived. Excavation at these places brought to light old tools, pottery, habitats, bones of ancient human beings and animals, and drawings on cave walls. By piecing together the information deduced from these objects and the drawings, scholars have constructed fairly accurate knowledge about what happened and how people lived in prehistoric times. When the basic needs of food, water, clothing, and shelter were fulfilled, people felt the need to express themselves. Painting and drawing were the oldest art forms practiced by human beings to express themselves using the cave walls as their canvas. Why did prehistoric people draw these pictures? They may have drawn and painted to make their shelter more colorful and beautiful or to keep a visual record of their day to day life, like some of us who maintain a diary. The prehistoric period in the early development of human beings is commonly known as the Old Stone Age or the Paleolithic Age. Prehistoric paintings have been found in many parts of the world. We do not really know if lower Paleolithic people ever produced any art objects. But by the upper Paleolithic times, we see a proliferation of artistic activities. Around the world, the walls of many caves of this time are full of finely carved and painted pictures of animals which the cave dwellers hunted. The subjects of their drawings were human figures, human activities, geometric designs, and animal symbols. In India, the earliest paintings have been reported from the Upper Paleolithic times. Take a look at this both pictures. Hand linked dancing figures, Lakhudia Uttarakhand. Vivi lines, Lakhudia Uttarakhand. It is interesting to know that the first discovery of rock paintings was made in India in 1867 to 68 by an archaeologist Archibald Carlyle, 12 years before the discovery of Altamira in Spain. Cockburn, Anderson, Mitra and Ghosh were the early archaeologists who discovered a large number of sites in the Indian subcontinent. Remnants of rock paintings have been found on the walls of the caves situated in several districts of Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, and Bihar. Some paintings have been reported from the Kuman Hills in Uttarakhand also. The rock shelters on banks of the river Suyal at Lakodhir, about 20 kilometers on the Almora Barchina road. Bear these prehistorical paintings. Lakodhir literally means 1 lakh caves. The paintings here can be divided into three categories: man, animal, and geometric patterns in white, black, and red ochre. Humans are represented in stick-line forms. A long-snouted animal, a fox, and a multiple-legged lizard are the main animal motifs. Wavy lines, rectangle filler, geometric designs, and groups of dots can also be seen here. One of the interesting scenes depicted here is of hand-linked dancing human figures. There is some superimposition of paintings. The earliest are in black, over these are red orch paintings, and the last group compares white paintings. From Kashmir, two slabs with engravings have been reported. The granite rock of Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh provided suitable canvases to the Neolithic man for his paintings. There are several such sites, but more famous among them are Kubgallu, Piklihal, and Tekalakota. Three types of paintings have been reported from here: paintings in white, paintings in red orch over a white background, and paintings in red orch. These paintings belong to late historical, early historical, and Neolithic periods. The subjects depicted are bulls, elephants, sambars, gazelles, sheep, goats, horses, stylish humans, tridents, but rarely vegetal motifs. But the richest paintings are reported from the Vindhya ranges of Madhya Pradesh and their Kaimurian extension into Uttar Pradesh. These hill ranges are full of Paleolithic and Mesolithic remains. And they are also full of forest, wild plants, fruits, streams, and creeks, thus a perfect place for Stone's people to live. Among these, the largest and most spectacular rock shelter is located in the Vindhya Hills at Bhimbetka in Madhya Pradesh. Bhimbetka is located 45 kilometers south of Bhopal in an area of 10 square kilometers, having about 800 rock shelters, 500 of which bear paintings. Take a look at the first picture, cave entrance, Bhimbetka, Madhya Pradesh. Take a look at second picture. Can you figure out what the artist is trying to depict in this painting? The caves of Bhimbetka were discovered in 1957 to 58 by eminent archaeologist V.S. Vakankar, and later on many more were discovered. Vakankar spent several years in surveying these inaccessible hills and jungles to study these paintings. The themes of paintings found here are of great variety, ranging from mundane events of daily life in those times to sacred and royal images. These include hunting, dancing, music, horse and elephant riders, animal fighting, honey collections, decoration of bodies, and other household scenes. The rock art of Bhimbetka has been classified into various groups on the basis of style, technique, and superimposition. The drawings and paintings can be categorized into seven historical periods: Period 1, Upper Paleolithic; Period 2, Mesolithic; and Period 3, Paleolithic. After Period 3, there are four successive periods, but we will confine ourselves here only to the first three pages. Upper Paleolithic period. The painting of the Upper Paleolithic phase are linear representation in green and dark red of huge animal figures such as bisons, elephants, tigers, rhinos, and boars, besides stick-like human figures. A few are wash paintings, but mostly they are filled with Geometric patterns. The green paintings are of dancers and the red ones of hunters. Take a look at this figure. One of the few images showing only one animal, Bhimbetka. Mesolithic period. The large number of paintings belonging to period 2 that covers the Mesolithic paintings during the period. The themes are multiple, but the paintings are smaller in size. Hunting scenes predominate. The hunting scenes depict people hunting in groups armed with barbed spears, pointed sticks, arrows, and bows. In some paintings, these primitive men are shown with traps and snares, probably to catch animals. The hunters are shown wearing simple clothes and ornaments. Sometimes men have been adorned with elaborate headdresses and sometimes painted with masks also. Elephant, bison, tiger, boar, deer, antelope, leopard, panther, rhinoceros, fish, frog, lizard, squirrel, and at times birds are also depicted. The Mesolithic artists love it to paint animals. In some pictures, animals are chasing men. In others, they are being chased and hunted by men. Some of the animal paintings, especially in the hunting scenes, show a fear of animals, but many others show a feeling of tenderness and love for them. There are also a few engravings representing mainly animals. Though animals were painted in a naturalistic style, humans were depicted only in a stylistic manner. Women are painted both in the nude and clothed. The young and the old equally find place in these paintings. Children are painted running, jumping, and playing. Community dances provide a common theme. There are paintings of people gathering fruit or honey from trees and of women grinding and preparing food. Some of the pictures of men, women, and children seems to depict a sort of family life. In many of the rock shelters, we find hand prints, fish prints, and dots made by the fingertips. The artist of Bimbetka used many colors, including various shades of white, yellow, orange, red, orange, purple, brown, green, and black. But white and red were their favorite colors. The paints were made by grinding various rocks and minerals. They got red from hematite known as Jeru in India. The green came from a green variety of a stone called chalcedony. White might have been made out of limestone. The rock of mineral was first ground into a powder. This means then have been mixed with water and also with something or sticky substance such as animal fat or gum or resin from trees. Brushes were made of plant fiber. What is amazing is that these colors have survived thousands of years of adverse weather conditions. It is believed that the colors have remained intact because of the chemical reaction of the oxide present on the surface of the rocks. Take a look at this picture. Painting showing a man being hunted by a beast, Bimbetka. Why has the animal been shown so big and man so small? The artist here made their paintings on the walls and ceilings of the rock shelters. Some of the paintings are reported from the shelters where people lived, but some others were made in places which do not seem to have been living spaces at all. Perhaps these places had some religious importance. Some of the most beautiful paintings are very high up on rock shelters or close to the ceilings of rock shelters. One may wonder why early human beings chose to paint on a rock in such an uncomfortable position. The paintings made at these places were perhaps for people to be able to notice them from a distance. The paintings thought from the remote past do not lack pictorial quality despite various limitations such as acute working conditions, inadequate tools, materials, etc. There is a charm of simple rendering of scenes of the environment in which the artists lived. The men showed in them appear adventurous and rejoicing in their lives. The animals are shown more youthful and majestic than perhaps they actual were. The primitive artists seem to possess an intrinsic passion for storytelling. These pictures depict in a dramatic way both men and animals engaged in the struggle for survival. In one of the scenes, a group of people have been shown hunting a bison. In the process, some injured men are depicted lying scattered on the ground. In another scene, an animal is shown in the agony of death and the men are depicted dancing. These kinds of paintings might have given man a sense of power over the animals he would meet in the open. This practice is common among primitive people of today also. They engrave or paint on rocks as part of the rituals they perform as at birth, at death, at coming of age and at the time of remarriage. They dance masked during hunting rites to help them kill animals difficult to find or kill. Take a look at these pictures. Hunting scene. Hunting scene predominate in Mesolithic paintings. This is one such scene where a group of people are shown hunting a bison. Some injured men are depicted lying scattered on the ground. This painting show mastery in the skill of drawing these forms. Dancing scene. In this picture, hand-linked figures in dancing mode are shown. In fact, this is a recurrent theme. It also recalls the dancing scene from the Lakudhya rock painting found in Uttarakhand. The paintings of individual animals show the mastery of skill or of the primitive artist in drawing these forms. Both proportion and tonal effect have been realistically maintained in them. It is interesting to note that at many rock art sites, often a new painting is painted on top of an older painting at Bhimbetka. In some places, there are as many as 20 layers of paintings, one on top of another. Why did the artist paint in the same place again and again? Maybe this was because the artist did not like his creation and painted another painting on the previous one. Or some of the paintings or places were considered sacred or special, or this was because the area may have been used by different generations of people at different times. These prehistoric paintings help us to understand about early human beings, their lifestyle, their food habits, their daily activities, and above all, they help us understand their mind, the way they thought. Prehistoric period remains are a great witness to the evolution of human civilization. Through the numerous rock weapons, tools, ceramics, and bones, more than anything else, the rock paintings are the greatest wealthy the primitive human beings of this period left behind. Exercise 1. According to your observation, how did the people of prehistoric times select themes for their paintings? 2. What could have been the reasons for depicting more animal figures than human figures in cave paintings? 3. Many visuals of prehistoric cave painting have been given in this chapter. Among these, which one do you like the most and why? Give a critical application of the visual. 4. Other than Bhimbetka, which are the other major sites where these prehistoric paintings have been found? Prepare a report on different aspects of these paintings with pictures or line drawings. 5. In modern times, how have walls been used as a surface to make paintings, graphics, etc.? Take a look at map of Indus Valley sites. Circled out ancient cities and the square modern towns. Thank you.